Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be discussing The Dynasty by Jeff Benedict. And very often I would say that if you read a good nonfiction book, you might be drawn into a documentary, docuseries, or a feature film that's done as a result of that. But in this particular case, it was the other way around. The docuseries, which premiered on Apple TV, I want to say a few months ago now, by the time I got to the second episode, I thought I have to read the source material for this. And I bought the book and got all the way through it. It's not short. It's 500 something pages. And Jeff Benedict is an excellent writer. And I feel like I'm probably going to read another half dozen books of his. He just has a way of storytelling. This book was based on 250 interviews. I think it took him 4 years to write it. And his writing is based in a way that really serves this material well, which is taking multiple stories from different people and bringing them together into a coherent narrative in, I wouldn't say bite-sized chapters, but in small episodes. And Benedict has said in interviews that he wrote this because he had an experience. He wrote a book about Tiger Woods, which then got made into a 2-part docuseries on HBO. Although quite different, I think Tiger and none of Tiger's people would cooperate on that book. So I wonder how that is in comparison to this, where he got the full cooperation of Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, and Tom Brady, who are, let's say, the 3 central players here. And for me, it's not just an excellent read because I take pleasure in the way that Benedict storytells and his writing style, but because I'm a neutral. I'm not someone who follows the NFL. I don't have a particular team that I care about, and I don't watch it consistently, but I am interested in the storylines of sports and how people can be drawn into it. I found out in reading this that Patriots fans are, I would say, religious about their team, which is unfortunate because, I mean, of all the things to be religious about, I mean, sports is really, it's just a game, right? I get that there are many good values that can be enforced by sports, but ultimately it's just a game. It's just something passing. And people give it far too much weight. I found out that people wear Patriots jerseys to weddings and funerals in New England, which is just extraordinary to me. As I say, I'm a neutral. I'm not someone from the area, so I can't possibly understand that. I get that people do it. I also don't get the fact that any sort of criticism of Bill Belichick among the New England crowd is unacceptable. For them, I said this joking to one of my close friends who's from Rhode Island, and parents are big fans of the Patriots. I said, Coach Belichick could go out in the middle of the street, shoot an old lady, and then run her over with his car. And people, the Patriots fans would say, well, Coach Belichick probably had his reasons, and would totally defend him, which is unreasonable. Again, it's this unthinking religiosity, which is stupid. Right? You should never have a religiosity towards mere mortals. You have to realize that people make mistakes, and rather than try to pretend that those mistakes didn't happen or to excuse them, you have to say, yeah, great people still make mistakes, and owning them is part of being great, not pretending that you can't make any mistakes. And I think that's something worth examining, I think is on display here. So what can we learn from this 500-page plus notes and excellent sourcing of a 20-year run of 9 Super Bowl appearances and 6 Super Bowl victories by this triumvirate of people? I think, firstly, I came to learn that Robert Kraft and his success as an NFL team owner and major player among the owners of the NFL, he was in charge of negotiating TV rights and player deals, etc. He was prepared for success in the NFL by being astute and thoughtful in the private business world. He took solid risks. He got outsized returns, and those returns, along with more unconventional thinking, allowed him to buy the Patriots at a propitious time for everybody, not just for the community in Boston and the New England area, but really for the NFL. So just the story of how he got the Patriots is fascinating. He also then took a huge risk in getting Bill Belichick. He traded a first-round draft pick at a time when the Patriots probably really needed a first-round draft pick to get Bill Belichick, when 90% of the people he talked to told them not to hire him. Bill Belichick had just had a horrible run in Cleveland and had been unceremoniously fired, and then had a controversy with the Jets. So Robert Kraft has an excellent gut, you could say, which serves you as a businessman. You have to make decisions sometimes that seem illogical, that seem other people stand against you, and he did it. And in the second part of this dynasty, in the final 10 years, he is the reason that Belichick and Brady are able to still work together, and I would argue brings about the greatest results, including the result in Atlanta, and then the result against the Rams, in which both people were allowed to shine. Brady was allowed to shine at the Atlanta Super Bowl, and the defensive mindset of Belichick was able to shine in the Rams Super Bowl. And it shows that both of them not only were good at one time in their past, but they grew over time. The problem, and here I'll transition into talking about Coach Belichick, is, well, let me start with the good news. He deserves credit for being a world-class coach. His commitment to the idea of team above all and an ethos in which no player got special treatment led to consistent results and championships. He was unsentimental about cutting people out of the team who had delivered over the years, but he always wanted to be a little early rather than a little late with players, getting rid of them. And it's a business. It's not sentimental. And I respect that from a business side of things. However, obviously it meant that he couldn't win over everybody. But there's numerous stories in the book in which he brings in a player who had been sidelined or cast out of other teams and brought them in. They would take pay cuts to come work for him, and they would blossom under him. And so clearly he's talented as a coach. His major defect was thinking that Tom Brady was like everybody else, which he treated in this way, that, oh, it's time to go, you're 38, you're 39, and he doesn't realize he was dealing with someone really generational in Tom Brady, someone that the league would not have seen before, maybe will not see again, at least not for a while. And he refused to recognize that, and instead decided to try to force his philosophy down and say, well, everybody's the same. It's like, well, clearly he's not. This is a man who's winning titles and winning championships and performing at a level better in his late 30s than in his late 20s. And Belichick was unable to adjust his thinking and adjust his behavior to what his eyes were telling him. He kept going back to the old information. Well, my old information tells me this, while watching the new information developing in front of him. So it's someone who's stuck on what history tells you when history is being broken right in front of you. And I think that was Belichick's biggest mistake with Brady. The also inexplicable one, which I think really argues against Belichick as a whole, is his benching of Malcolm Butler in the Eagles Super Bowl. No reason has ever been given. He refused to answer in the documentary. And there are all sorts of conspiracy theories among New England fans, including one shared by a friend of mine who said, oh, well, maybe Butler bet on the game and Belichick was trying to prevent him from playing. It just like crazy conspiracy theories, anything but to admit that Belichick made a decision that went against the team, that directly contradicted what he said to a reporter afterwards. I made a decision that would give us the best chance of winning. But that's a crazy statement, given that Butler had played 98% of the defensive snaps of that season, and he had helped win a Super Bowl by intercepting from the Seahawks towards the end of the game. And so this man, who in a Super Bowl in which the defense was really lacking and Nick Foles was targeting Butler's replacements over and over and over, Belichick again displayed this hardness of thinking, I've made a decision and I won't adapt to what's happening in front of me. So I think the Patriots, that loss can be laid at his feet because the offense did what they needed to. The New England offense in that Super Bowl kept scoring, trying to keep pace with the Eagles. But the New England defense let that down. And Belichick, remember, is known for being a defensive coach, but he failed, and he failed in two ways. One, with the game plan, and then secondly, with the benching of Malcolm Butler, which to this day, even in the documentary, has never been explained. Obviously, who comes off looking the best, not only in the book, but in the series, is Tom Brady. And I think this is for good reason. Tom comes off as someone vulnerable but level-headed. And remember that he is, in a sense, the axis on which all of this turns. Yes, without Robert Kraft, you don't have the money to support Bill Belichick. Without Bill Belichick, you don't have the coaching nous to bring together an amazing group of players to win, not just on offense with Tom Brady, he's one player, but with defense. Defense also wins championships. And Brady showed this willingness to keep going. And once he had become the best, he wasn't able to look to other players for inspiration. He had to find that motivation from within. And years and years into his journey, he would go, especially after a loss, he would go to the stadium and watch tape for hours and hours. And people didn't realize he would spend the night at the stadium and then join them for practice the next day. So I think that's part of why I read Tom Brady's book on performance. I've read 2 other books about New England, is because I'm trying to see in a natural order what is necessary to deliver excellence in what you do. And I think Tom Brady shows this in many different ways. And I'm speaking strictly about his work as a football player, his dedication, not just physically, but mentally, to keep getting better. And a video, I don't know if you can find it online. I think I saw it on Facebook originally, but yes, I'm sure it's certainly online. You can find it. He runs the 40-yard dash in the NFL Combine, which, if you don't know, the NFL Combine is something that new players go to, and they perform certain tasks which allow scouts and team officials to get a better sense of who they are. Brady ran a faster 40-yard dash in his 40s than he did in his 20s. And if that doesn't illustrate to you the importance of not giving up, not just relying on what you did in the past, but on always trying to improve and never taking anything for granted and always struggling to be your best, I think that's something that can inspire any of us, regardless of what other challenges that Brady might have faced. I think also for me, coming out of this as someone who I really wasn't paying attention to the NFL and the odds. So this whole Deflategate, Spygate thing, I really didn't know about until I've read the books more recently, not just the Dynasty, but one of Michael Hawley's books and a book called 12, in which I am more certain than I'm not to sort of play on the Wells report. I am more certain than I am not that Tom Brady did not explicitly order balls to be deflated. I do think there was a witch hunt against him. Same thing with Spygate. The idea that the signals that were available to everybody were being taped. I think Belichick made a big mistake. In the book, Kraft calls him out, says, "You're a real schmuck for doing this." He asks him on a 1 to 100 scale, "How much does this help you?" 1 is what Belichick says, and Kraft says, "You're a real schmuck." So that's a Bill Belichick thing. That's not a Tom Brady thing. But in any case, if people think that Tom Brady needed a ball to be deflated to kill opponents, that was shown over and over that you can have the balls however you want. You can take away the ability of the Patriots to film you. They were still going to crush you because they had a superior coach and they had a superior quarterback. And what we saw was a lot of envy and desperation. And okay, that happens. That happens with dynasties. People cheer you on until you live long enough to become the villain. Take the words from Harvey Dent in the Christopher Nolan trilogy. In any case, I think Brady is the hero of the story because ultimately he's the moral force who were supported by 2 people who helped bring the best out of him, who helped develop him as a human, as a sports player, and as a man. And Belichick and Kraft deserve credit, despite, as I say, I can give Bill Belichick credit while admitting I think he still made some mistakes. I think that's the problem with New England. Diehard New England fans is they want everyone to give Belichick the credit, and they don't want to allow him to be called out for any of the mistakes he's made. And that's crazy. So anyway, if you like what you heard on this, please hit like, hit subscribe, send it to a big Patriots fan. They'll probably get all sorts of hate comments. Send it to people who are not Patriots fans. Maybe they'll be interested in reading. You can also look at my Amazon wish list, see if there's any books that you want to send my way. If you somehow really like this is the first, I think, sports book I reviewed for the channel, so I can't promise you that there's a lot other coming. But if you like this enough to dig in further, who knows, consider joining my Patreon or YouTube membership, and you'll get early releases of videos like this one. And All of my reviews in 2024 are through these different income streams, be them from super thanks. You can also send a super thanks in the channel, or subscriptions, etc. A portion of those are going to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. It's been doing work for many years, getting medical care to Palestinian children who otherwise wouldn't be able to get it. But I think they've been doing an exceptional job in the last year, and they deserve your support, whether you give that support to them directly or by supporting the channel indirectly, giving them your support. Until next time, enjoy your reading.